I know that the feeling I have is sort of rage and anger.
Rage and anger. Okay.
You're, I don't know, President Clinton or somebody in the government.
Let's see. Is that mic working, or do we have a better mic? Let's use the other one then. It's a little
How's that?
okay.
So I was saying you'd be, you'd be President Clinton or somebody from the government, and I'm me.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm President Clinton.
So I read recently that the U.S. government sold $22 million in weapons to the Sri Lankan government.
Yes?
And I feel, am I doing jackal or giraffe or just whatever?
Well, you tell me. Do you want me to put giraffe ears on this jackal?
It's better than a jackal response, yes.
Okay, so all right. Now this jackal has giraffe ears. Say it whatever way you want. Because with these ears on, this person can hear nothing except giraffe.
First response I had was a sense of helplessness and rage and anger at the fact of the arms sale and at the timing of it, given that apparently Norway has been in there talking about mediation between the conflicting parties, and just at that time to go in and get involved by selling arms seems really destructive, and I feel so scared of what's already been going on for the last 20 years and what the scale will just go up through the roof with the amount of violence that these sophisticated weapons can do.
So let me see if I'm see now if this jackal politician has giraffe ears. He's going to interrupt her because he's under tremendous time pressure and she's way over the 40-word limit. And not realizing that she's using precious time. But now if he's kind, he will interrupt her, but not to take the flow of communication away from her, but to help bring her to life quicker so that we can make most productive use of this time. See, so he interrupts, but notice he doesn't take the conversation away. It's to help her get more connected to life. So if I'm hearing you, I'm hearing that you suffer immensely because you know what goes on in that country and the amount that people have suffered. And you have some hopes about this Norwegian mediation. And you really would like to support that in the hopes that this might work. So then it is enormously painful to you when you see the amount of weapons that we're prepared to send over there right now. Have I heard what you're wanting to say to me?
Yeah, except there's a lot more energy to it.
You want me to really see just how much you're suffering from this, the rage,
it's just,
hurt?
it's so, it defies logic to me that...
Yes. Yes, it is so frightening to you that this could happen. How could anyone do that with an awareness of the history of the situation? And to think of what weapons might do over there when there's already so much suffering, it's just, it's an intense pain you feel.
When a lot of governments have refused to deal in arms with the Sri Lankan government because of its incredibly bad human rights history. And
to give those weapons to a group of people who have shown such violence to people who are different. How it defies your understanding to imagine how I could have supported that.
Yeah. And of course, I'm just staying with this now because I'm being a good student. But did in my head when I first found out was to go into the feeling a lot of anger and blame.
Yes,
It's like
and if
the
I
richest
have
country
these-
in the
and
world does not need to make more money by selling arms.
Yes, and
it's
what's
really
scary
screwed
for
up.
you is to be in a world where people might do that in order to meet needs of theirs for status, for financial security, financial gain, that people would choose to do that for those reasons at the cost of the suffering. It just is excruciatingly painful to you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want me to hear? Let me ask this. What is your present request of me now that I've heard that? This is very important if you are a giraffe. When we have limited time with somebody, if we don't have clear present requests, we're not likely to go out of that meeting with what we wanted.
I'm sorry.
So she's lucky that this person has giraffe ears who's helping her get that. Because if she didn't make a clear present request, she's asking for this. Well, I thank you very much for coming in and letting your thoughts be understood, because it behooves us all as American citizens living in a country that fosters free expression, that it is wonderful that you exercise your right, but you ask for it by not making a clear present request. So when you don't make a clear present request, get used to bureaucratic blah, blah, blah. But now, put on giraffe ears and make a clear present request. What are you wanting from my friend Bill here?
Billy Jeff.
Billy Jeff. Yep.
I guess. What I really want is for those arms not to go there.
Good. Now put that into a present request. Mr. Clinton, I'd like you to tell me what could be done to prevent that happening. See, that's a present request. But don't just say a general future request. I would like, Mr. Clinton, would you tell me what would need to happen for those arms not to be sent? If that's what you want. But make it a clear present request.
And
In fact, I would have recommended, if this was a limited time with the president, I would have suggested that you start with that. I learned this trick from a member of a street gang that I was with. We get close, and one day we were trying to get some money from a foundation for funding a school that we were trying to do together for kids that were kicked out of school or pushed out. And my friend said to me, we needed $55,000, you see. And he said, hey, B, the first time he heard my name is Marshall B. Rosenberg. That's pretty formal for him. So from that point on, all the gang members ever called me was B. They were impressed with the name, but it was too much, you know. So for the next 13 years, when I tell, hey, B, don't you know the guy down there, that foundation that you were getting all that money to? Yeah, you mean the Danforth Foundation? Yeah, let's go down there and get some money. Yeah, don't I wish? Yeah, but I happen to know that the funding time is 2 weeks ago. You had to get the application in, and do you know what you have to do to get a proposal in there? You got all this. Yeah. I know that's what you're supposed to. Can you get the appointment? I said, yeah. Let's go down there. I didn't know what he had in mind, but anyway, I could get the appointment. I'd work with the Danforth Foundation. I was told by the secretary, Dr. Schwilk, said he would see you, since I told him it was important. He can squeeze you in between appointments. We knew we had very limited time. So we go into the office, and I said, Dr. Schwilk, this is my colleague Al Chappell. Al Chappell, this is Dr. Gene Schwilk, president of the Danforth Foundation. He reaches across, shakes his hand, and says, where's the money? See, right to a present request, you see? And I wanted to hit him. You know, oh my God, you know, what the hell is he doing? You know, Really, I was really irritated. And what money? The money for the fun school. What's the fun school? But now notice, we're using the precious time for this person to get the information he needs to decide whether he wants to give us what we want. See? Precious time. But he's telling us what he needs to know. We walked out with $55,000.
I didn't make it clear from the beginning. I wanted to play him so that I could get in touch with what happened for me, because I don't imagine I'll actually have a chance to talk with him. So
I got you. So, yeah. So if you ever do, though, I just want you to see, start any meeting where you have a lot resting on it with limited time. Start by requesting of the other person that they ask you what they need to know to give you what you want. Got that? Start by asking them to ask you what they need to know to give you what you want. So I come into your office, I say, what do you need to know right now to know whether you want to give us the money for our project? Okay. What do you need to know? Well, what project? See, but, okay, so you have to know what project. So I'm already asking you to get clear what you need to know to decide whether you want to give us what we want. I tell you what I want. I want money for this project. What do you need to know to decide whether you're going to give us that? I don't take precious time telling you all about the project. Maybe 90% of what I say isn't necessary. It's going to get in the way of the time. Oh, what do you need to know to decide whether you want to give us what we want? Okay, but let's go back to your request then. I guess I didn't understand. So you just wanted some empathy from old Bill. You didn't want to change. You didn't want to get these arms not sent.
I want to learn to have empathy for him, and I don't.
You want to have empathy for him?
Yeah.
Oh well, then let's give you the giraffe ears.
Well, I'm not ready for them yet.
Oh, I see. What do you need before you can hear poor Bill? Because I don't know of anybody that needs more empathy in a situation than that than poor Bill.
I want more help to get in touch with what's going on, because I can only access the rage and the fear. I can get to the fear, but
then we'll put the giraffe ears back on Bill. Okay. So tell Bill what more you need him to connect with.
Well, okay, I'll be honest. What's going through my head is things like, how can a group of people or a nation of people be able to sleep at night, given that they profit from suffering that gets caused either by making weapons or selling weapons, and our economy is so based on it. And
so what's exasperatingly painful for you is not knowing what could go on in people who would benefit at other people's suffering. What could be going on in us? Not knowing that, it's just excruciatingly painful for you to think that you're living in a world where that could happen.
I don't know, I feel really hopeless when I think about people with resources spending their time and energy making and selling weapons.
And all the energy that goes into the making of the weapons and the selling of them, the profits, what would keep those people from being aware of the suffering that's going to be created by that? Why wouldn't they use that same energy to serve life? This is dumbfounding to you. Painful to you.
Yeah, I don't know how to have hope when there's so many smart people devoting so many hours
People with intelligence, education, resources. How we could do that. How we could do that. We know what's going on over there. How we could do that.
I guess I'm ready to try empathizing.
Bill, how do you feel when you hear what she's saying? We've got 10 minutes to express all of that. Do your best, Bill. I can call him Bill. I used to live in Texas. It's enormously painful to me when I hear what you say. Enormously painful. Because I would like to contribute to what you want, which is really peace in that region. And I'm aware that there are these groups, rebel groups, that have been causing great pain to citizens. And I would like to bring order into your country. And one way that we can think of to do this is to say to your government that we'll give them the weapons to control these violent minorities if they will promise us to change human rights practices in the country. That we will give them all kinds of economic aid if they will promise to do that. And I'm putting my hopes that that will be even more effective than what I'm predicting the Norwegians could do. And what's deeply painful to me, is that you may be right, and that what I've chosen to do might actually contribute to more violence in that area. So I've made a choice based on that I have the same needs that you do. And it's very scary to me that I may have made a choice that I can only tell you I think I was acting in the service of the same needs that you were. There's some others, yes. It's complicated. There's other political pressures I'm under, but I can tell you sincerely that I acted with the same intent that you want, which is how can we stop the violence in that region? And I'd like to know how you feel when I tell you this.
I can only remind myself that a human, I don't believe you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I have no trouble understanding why you would have trouble believing me, because I said there's a lot of other stuff going on too that I must admit is making it hard for me to make this choice. I'm under all kinds of pressures from manufacturers in the United States, deals that they will make with me to contribute to my needs to make this a safer place. If I agree to things that will make for better life for them economically, and I get so lost in the maze of this myself that I don't have any trouble understanding why you might have trouble trusting my intent. But I can only tell you that with all of my heart I want to contribute to peace in that area. I hope you can hear that I'm in like a whirlwind of pressures, and it's very hard for me to really get clear what is the best way to meet my needs. And I suffer immensely to think that I may be making choices that contribute to enormous violence. How do you feel when I tell you that?
I'm having a hard time getting beyond the distrust. I believe all the feelings and all the confusion, all of those. I don't believe that my need and yours is the same in this.
You don't believe that I would like to contribute to safety in that region?
I think if you thought about it, you might, but I don't think
You're afraid that I get so caught up in these other things that I lose that?
I think that's not in the picture for you.
That scares me too. That scares me too. I get in such a whirlwind that I think it's hard for any other citizen in the world to understand on any given day. The whirlwind of pressures that I'm under. And I am afraid that what you're saying is true, that I lose connection. I wish I had someone daily to talk to me like you're talking with me now. It would help me stay connected. I have a lot of people to talk to every day, but it's not at this level. And I'm enough of a student of history to know how institutions can make Nazis out of us all, even people with good hearts like I think I have. And that scares me, to be the chief Nazi in that syndrome. Beyond what I can say in words, how scared I am of that. And I think you've guessed the big fear I have, that I'll get lost. I'll lose connection with my basic needs. So I would like to hear from the rest of the group. I made myself very vulnerable as a public politician just now to reveal that much of myself in public, so I feel very vulnerable. I'd like to know how you're all feeling about what I said. Yes?
Well, I'm feeling a lot of compassion for the president, because I was thinking about all the people that are talking to him today that aren't talking to him on that level, and the whirlwind that you talked about. It's just like when we drop beneath what appears on the surface to be whatever we're attributing motivation, or doesn't jive with our ideas about how things are supposed to be in any given situation, and then hear the suffering, and to think about. I've thought of that sometimes because I come from a leftist background. Not there very much anymore, just because of the suffering that I saw and experienced, but within the left. Forget where I was going with that, but it's something to do with the judgments that we make of other people. And I guess what I was going to say is, at some points thinking about, well, if I were, I have friends say, if I were president, or if we were the president, and I just think, wow, what a place to be. So I thought you gave voice to it that sounded sincere, even if we might not agree with what your actions are. So I felt a lot of compassion for you as president.
It does raise the issue about, though, when you're in a system, whether it be a family system or a global system, where the paradigm isn't shared by other people, and to what extent can you not be, in their eyes, a wimp and jeopardize your sort of small security or a global security? In other words, people aren't playing by the same rules. So
you're saying in the role of the president here,
yeah,
how do you keep your humanness within a complicated system where, see, Walter Wink says something that's really helped me. In his book, The Powers That Be, he points out that institutions have their own spirituality. So how do you connect with human beings when you're working within an institution that has a spirituality that makes violence enjoyable.
Or if
And
not
profitable.
enjoyable,
And
necessary in
profitable.
their eyes.
Pardon?
If not enjoyable, necessary in their eyes.
Well, that's how you make it enjoyable, to believe that it's necessary and you're protecting the free world and so forth. They won't say enjoyable, they'll say necessary, but it's enjoyable.
Okay.
Yes, how do you keep your humanness in that kind of institution, which is what we all need to learn to do. It's critical. And then we need to know how to transform those systems so that the systems have a spirituality that supports life rather than greed.
Right.
Yeah.
What I saw
Well, that was the empathy. What was the answer?
That the answer?
Yeah.
The answer is you and me need to, first of all, know how to create that world that we want within ourselves, while at the same time creating what Gramsci calls prefigurative relationships, that is, relationships that model the larger governmental pictures we would like to see in our families and in our workplaces that we can control, and at the same time transforming these bigger structures by gathering up other people who share our vision and transforming these structures. You and me are going to do it. Yeah.
what I saw was the opportunity that you, the president with giraffe ears, gave her by stressing your commonality. That you needed someone like her every day in conversation.
Oh, yes.
That was important. That was an important point. And I can understand why she didn't pick it up, because if this were a real life situation, the giraffe ears would be invisible and the words might be the same if you were just trying to put her off. So it does get complicated.
Yes, I played that role with giraffe ears on it. It could have been a lot more difficult. I think the same feelings would have been going on, but without the giraffe ears, it would have been a lot different. It would have been, yes, I see your point, and I think it's well taken. And I'd like you to know that we have many people looking into this situation. So thank you for coming in. Next. No, it could have been a lot harder if you hadn't had the ears on. Yeah.
I mean, you asked how to respond to that, and I guess I responded thinking that, I mean, the difference, I don't know why you played it that way exactly, or why we would believe that that's necessarily true. In other words, I think that it's as likely, one's as likely to get that first response from the president as the second, because after all, the first one would have been more effective in accomplishing the goal of connecting with the person without having to change anything or without having to really be sincere about those things.
I'm not sure what you're saying, can you?
I guess I didn't find myself convinced by the genuine.
You weren't sure that even the first one was telling honestly what was going on.
I mean, it could have been true, but
You
I
don't know.
doubt
You're
it.
not. You have a lot of distrust of it.
Yes.
I have trust that it was true, and I have trust that even the people that are doing most of the violence of the world have the same needs that you and I do. I've talked to them. I've talked to many of them, and I'm sure that I have no doubt that at the need level, we have the same needs.
Well, I agree.
I've talked to soldiers who are cutting off arms of children, and we have the same needs. I'm convinced of that. But they're caught up in systems where I think it's pretty hard for them to stay connected to those needs. There's a whole lot of other competing things going on in them.
Well, I'm convinced that they have the same needs, but I'm not convinced that they're troubled.
You're not convinced that they're troubled?
I-
I would
I'm
agree
not-
with
I'm
you
not-
that
I-
unless they have a friend like this, they're not going to get in touch with that pain. There's enough to keep them spinning that they're not in touch with that pain. Yeah, that I can understand, but they're far from it. It would take a lot. In the interest of time, I shortened this, but it would take a lot to bring them down to that level, yeah.